Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Monroe Mann with Miss Bhavya Bandari and Miss Susan Guessing. We are all staff members here at Break Diving, and today we're having a Ruby on Rails event, coding event, where we just talk about different topics or questions that we may have about Ruby Rails. And so it's basically a learning opportunity for us and for any of you watching. And it's not open just to staff members. If you're a member of Breakdiving and you're a coder or you want to learn about coding, you can come join breakdiving.io. You can find the link in the description below and come and join us too, because we would love to help you and have you help us. So what I was saying earlier, and if you guys have different topics too that we can discuss, I was doing reading on SQL recently as it relates to Rails. And they were saying, be very, very careful about using custom queries using SQL, because you can run into problems where it doesn't actually return the same results each time because of the way it's done. Oh, Selena's here. And instead, what you should do is try to always use an active record query. Try to use the queries that are provided with active record. So if you write it via SQL, see if you can, and it works. Hey, Selena.
Hi, Selena.
And we're talking about
Sorry,
SQL and active record.
What?
So we're talking about SQL and active record. Do you know what those two are?
No.
Okay. So SQL is structured query language, and it's how you do queries of the database. And in Rails, there's something called active record. For example, when you do, I'm trying to think of just a quick example of an active record query. When you're in the console and you do user.all, that's active record. It's like basically Rails and whoever Rails created this query system that uses Ruby code, but it actually turns it into SQL behind the scenes and grabs the data you need from the database. And I was just saying that I read in this book on Rails and active record, although you may be tempted to do a SQL query, be careful, because in some situations, the SQL query will not work exactly the same way each time. And I have to look and find it exactly. When you could try to use an active record query, like try to see if you can turn it into an active record query instead, because that'll always be consistent. Bhavya, have you heard anything about this?
No, but I always thought that when you write active record queries, system will convert that one into SQL. So now I'm just thinking like how it would affect, like finally it would be a SQL query, right, which is fetching that data from database.
Okay, let's do a screen share, and let's just actually look and see what we can find here. Let's see, dangers of SQL versus active record Rails. See if there's anything comes up. I read it in the what book was it? It was Rails 5. I think it's called the Rails 5 way. Here, active record versus SQL raw queries. Let's see what this says. And I haven't come here. I don't know which this one says. Okay. What's the difference between active record and writing raw queries? Oh, this might be very helpful. Active record will serve you well most of the time, with a few situations where you need to write raw SQL. It's worth noting that active record queries can also be written in SQL-like way. For example, you could write user.where name person, or you could write it with a slightly more SQL-like syntax. User.where name equals person, where name like. One of the reasons you may want to write raw SQL is when you're trying to access something that cannot be accessed through active record methods, like the join table in a has and belongs to many association. So, okay, that's interesting. So there are situations then when you must use a SQL query.
Yeah.
You can't just use active record. It's too complicated. And I think what he's saying here, if you want to do a join and it has and belongs to many, you need to do SQL. Is that what you guys got?
Yeah.
Is that what you got, Selena?
I don't know what has and belongs to many means.
It's a relationship where one item, for example, let's say, I'm trying to think, maybe a teacher and a class. A teacher has many classes, and when I say classes, like a courses, has many courses, and maybe belongs to many courses as well. That might not be the best example, but it's a situation where you have, they're going back and forth like this, rather than just being an A and B, like each class has students. Actually, that could be possible with students and classes. Each student has many classes,
Mhm.
and each student belongs to many classes.
Each class has many students.
Hmm.
Let's just, you know what, again, none of us profess to be experts in anything. So let's do a search. Selena asked a good question. Let's just make sure we know. Has and belongs to many example. I'm pretty sure I'm on the right track. Let's just see an example. If your application includes assemblies and parts, with each part appearing in many assemblies, or with each assembly having many parts, and each part appearing in many assemblies. Let me see if that's the same thing as what I said. Each student having many classes, and each class appearing in many students. I don't know if that language doesn't work. I don't know.
Like each class has a lot of students, and then each student has a lot of classes.
Yeah.
That's what I think. That's what I think it is. I think it's the same thing here. Each assembly has many parts, and each part has many assemblies.
Assemblies.
Yeah. And so I think what it does is basically it's just a has many and has many, but it also belongs to both. So I guess it helps to set up a relationship between parts and assemblies, because they are both, they go back and forth both ways. Does that help a little, Selena?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if we can go further. Key difference that active record lets you be more productive by using a higher level of abstraction, which lets you write less code. Makes your code more portable by abstracting away some of the differences between database management systems. But using active record comes at a cost and can lead to performance problems. Now, this is the opposite. This one is saying if you use active record, it could cause problems. Whereas what I had read, it's if you use SQL, if you don't pay attention to queries that active record generates, in which situation one should adopt writing raw SQLs. And when needed to accomplish the job at hand, you can use Postgres extension I like. At user equal user.where users.name I like. Did you know you could do this, Bhavya? I think you knew that already, right?
Yeah.
I think you've used that before in your queries.
Oh, params, no, params I never did. That's interesting.
At user, so user.where users.name. This is interesting. What is this? Is this users meaning the user's model? What, because it's underscore, it's lowercase.
Yeah, it's a SQL whenever it is in like that column, it's a SQL statement.
So this is the same thing using, if we're using active record, it would be capital user.name, right?
Yeah, yes.
Right. So when you're doing this, when you're doing SQL, it's case insensitive. Okay, users.name I like. What does I like mean again? It means is it similar to?
Yeah, but I know it's like, I never heard about I like. Oh, it's a Postgres, then it might be same. Yeah.
So wait,
I'm saying in SQL we do like it's searching the word, what do we call it?
Like and ILike are used for pattern matching in Postgres.
Yeah.
Like is the SQL standard, while ILike is a useful extension made by Postgres. Let's see what the difference is. Selena and Susan, do you both know basics of SQL?
Yes.
Yes, Selena?
No.
All right, well, work hard on your W3 Schools SQL tutorial. It's really, really good.
It is, yeah.
And remember, always remember to log in, because sometimes if you don't log in, you think that and then you wonder why that lesson doesn't get marked as completed and your points don't go up. But if this doesn't make sense right here, Selena, do that tutorial. It's going to make things a lot easier. Okay, create table string collection. Let's see, like. Two are the most important selection by like and ILike. Okay. No, and you use percentage sign and the underscore. The percentage sign matches any sequence of 0 or more characters. The underscore on the pattern matches any single character. For instance, let's look at the following query. Select string. That's this column here. From string collection, that's the whole table. Where string like, that's a 0, or is that an O? Oh, it's an O.
Yeah.
So the percentage is any sequence of 0 or more characters. So we want to find any of them that start with O. So we end up with 3.
Mhm.
And if you use the underscore, like, it means it's on either side of them. Oh, I see. So the O means, when you use the percentage sign, it says, does it start with? Oh, no. Wait a second. What is the difference between these two?
0 or more O's?
Yeah, 0 or more O's. And this one matches any single character, but only once? I don't understand.
When it is underscore, it can match with any letter or number.
Something and something.
Yeah, letter, something, and
It
the
has to be
letter.
the middle character.
Yeah,
So this is one where the string starts with O.
yeah.
Here is when we don't care where in the string it is if it has the N.
Right.
Mhm.
So now all right, let's look at just those two with ILike. ILike is similar to like in all aspects except in one thing. It performs a case instance
Oh,
matching.
Okay.
huh.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay, so like is completely case sensitive. ILike, so the I stands for insensitive.
Okay.
Do you sort of understand, Selena?
Yeah.
Okay, good. It'll make more sense. Oh, come on. I'm because I don't have my mouse here. I'm using this one on my little portable keyboard and it's acting up. Okay, so then if we go back to what we were looking at, use it on name. So case insensitive,
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
a match of the question mark, which is whatever is in the params that you pass over. And then so then you send params looking for a name. So then it's going to look through the name. So look for users not name that match the params
Mhm.
for the particular name that are passed into that query. Okay. Or when you do extra complicated join. So you can't do that in active record, which we've learned, Bhavya. And so I'm glad we did this because based on what I was reading, I thought it was saying don't use SQL unless
Mhm.
there's no other choice. But here it's saying that there often is no other choice.
Mhm.
What I'm going to do is when I find that book again, I'm going to go read it again. I think I'll probably understand a little bit better now that I know that it wasn't SQL is bad, active record good. Apparently, active record is no good for a lot of situations like these complicated joins.
Yeah.
Lastly, if you don't know how to perform an operation with active record, it's often better to write a bit of SQL with a test backing it and go back and refactor it later. So we could do it here using SQL. and then refactor it to at users.where.not. Oh, that's interesting. This is considered active record too. Occupation params blacklist.
Mhm.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, good. So what I think we got from this, each one of us needs to share one thing that you learned from what we just did. So what I learned is that, and it could be more than one thing. So the first thing is that active record is preferable whenever you can use it because it's just easier.
Mhm.
But there are situations where you may need to use a direct SQL statement, such as right here. And when you do that, always see after you write it, can I possibly turn it into active record later to see if I can refactor it? So, Selena, what did you learn?
I learned what active record means and
What
what
does it mean?
the syntax looks like. It's just the user.where thing.
Yeah, but put it into English. Tell me what active record is. If Bhavya, Susan, I didn't know, what would you explain it as?
Just searches through a database for entries that fulfill specific conditions.
Good. And but for what language?
Ruby.
Not Ruby,
Rails.
Rails. It's definitely, it's part of the Rails framework. It's built, I imagine, using Ruby, but it's specifically for Rails. Susan, what did you learn?
Well, honestly, it's given me a little familiarity of how to incorporate SQL in Rails because this is new to me. I haven't had to do it yet in my work. So if I had to do this, I would have to look it up. So this is helping me realize what we can do in Rails through SQL. So it's a little bit different than the actual thing that we're learning here, because that's a little beyond my knowledge of SQL and Rails. I'm kind of a little still at the beginning. I know SQL and I know Rails, but I need to get them together in my head. So that's what this is helping me with.
So before we go on to what Bhavya learned, I want to ask Bhavya a question then, because here, how do we use, like here's a regular Ruby method here.
Yeah.
Define self.pluck from like there, and then there's the end.
Mhm.
How do we, and this is clearly SQL right here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But how do we let the Ruby know that, hey, we want to use SQL? So here, do you always have to do active record base?
Yes, yeah, that connection execute. Yes,
Oh,
we have to do
interesting.
that one.
So-
If we are in the console also, if we want to write, like execute the SQL command, we should use that active record, that base method, connect.execute that method.
So that you always do active record :base .connection .execute.
Yes.
And what does that do? That connects to the database directly?
Yes. It does. I'm not sure. I think it's in the Rails platform, mostly it executes the SQL statement. Otherwise, it's usually active record. It's executing the active record statements. But when you say this method, it directly, mostly it executes the SQL statement.
And when you get to the end of it, it automatically, oh, I guess it would be here. Actually, this whole thing is it.
Mm-hmm.
What what does it return? An array?
Depends on the
Not-
statement, right? I
Yeah,
would think.
mostly. I'm not sure. It's
I mean, this one seems like it's it's ordering by. It's ordering by the ID.
Yes, yeah.
So why don't we look at this together and let's see if we can interpret what it's doing.
It's sometimes sometimes it's an array, or sometimes it's like ash also. It results into I'm not sure like how it does. And
Generally, like with all the work that you've been doing on breakdiving with your queries, where you're actually writing a custom SQL statement like this, what is it returning generally? Is it sometimes a single value? Sometimes it's a hash, sometimes it's an array. What are all the possible data formats you can get back from doing this?
Yes, most of the time it's a hash,
Okay.
key and value. And yes, it's most of the time hash.
And give me an example of using our website of a hash that you would get back. Like what would the key and the value be?
Like leaderboard, all the points with the category.
Oh, so the key would be maybe the username or the ID of the member, and then the value would be the number of points they have.
Right.
Interesting. Okay. Awesome. I think the biggest less takeaway from this was the fact that she said you always have to do this. Active record ::base.connection.execute. And now where does the SQL query start? Does it start at the select, or what's this percentage
Yeah,
Q?
what's that?
Yeah, even I don't know what is percentage Q.
Let's
But
try-
usually where I worked, I never used that percentage Q, but directly the SQL statement.
percentage Q. And I'm wondering, maybe it's not SQL. I wonder if it's
Maybe.
Yeah, I
Rails.
think it's active Rails.
Let's see, percentage
It
Q.
might be saying end result, how to save the end result or something, but
Here we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh, I know what it does. It creates an array.
okay, yeah, and
Oh,
So that's how we know. This is
Oh,
an
look.
alternative for when you have more quotes in here. Instead of putting backslashes in front of them, you can easily write. Let me see. I think that's right. Oh, it's an alternative for double quoted strings. Oh, you know what it is? It's used when you do create arrays though. So you don't have to write all of the things out. You could do like array.new $Q and then separate the items here with, you don't have to do the quotation marks all the time in the commas. Let me see if there's a good example. When you have more quote characters, instead of putting backs in front of them, you can easily write. Let me find a better example to show you, because this doesn't actually make it clear. Because simple Ruby on Rails, but it wasn't as simple. Using appliance Q with Ruby. Oh, this is actually perfect.
oh, nice.
It has an example that's kind of similar to what we're doing. So there you go. So link equals percentage Q. Let me see if this is actually going to work. I've used them useful when working with multi-line SQL statements. Advantage here is you don't need to pay attention to the type of quoting used within your query. It will work with either single, double, or both. They're also a lot less fussy than the here doc style method. Maybe I'm confused. There's something where you do where it's the array. I think I'm. It's useful when your string contains single or double quotes. This person looks like he's auto-generating code in the same language, clearly forming code. Come on, none of these people are actually explaining it super carefully. I mean, here I see there's quotation marks next to value, but I don't understand why there's percentage Q. Am I missing something? Anybody seeing anything?
Isn't it because you want to quote the whole thing?
I don't know. I think so, sort of. When you've run out of quoting methods, they're extraordinarily
Doesn't that mean, like, say, you know how we have a double, and then so inside we need to use a single? What if, this is what it sounds like when he says run out. What if you need to go inside of that?
But you could just use then a set of single quotes, because here it's double quotes, and then inside it's single quotes. So you should be able to put single quotes then on the outside, right? So let's find someone else that can maybe explain this. Ruby strings tutorials point. Okay, here. With general delimited strings, you can create strings inside a pair of matching, though arbitrary delimiter characters. Oh, wait a second. Is it saying we can make our own delimiters? Maybe. Maybe it's saying we don't care what the characters you use. You can create your own. Like Ruby is general delimited strings can be so percentage Ruby is fun. Equivalent to Ruby is fun.
Mhm.
So percentage Q, Ruby is fun, equivalent to Ruby is fun.
What's the difference? Mr.
I have no idea what the difference is.
I don't know.
See?
I don't know. This is a worse example than the last one.
Yeah, right. You know what? Maybe W3 schools, is there one? Well, there's W3 resources now. There's got to be something that explains that. I love it how like there are all these sites and not one person explains it. Official Ruby FAQ, Ruby guide. Let's try Google. When to use percentage Q Ruby. I think we saw that one already. We saw that one already. Here, we could try this. Alternate quote. We'll try this first one. Oh, I think I was thinking about %W. That's the one that I think I understood. Or that makes the, let me just check on that and see what that is. Maybe it's actually on there. Is it on there? I think this is basically, it makes an array, percentage W, where foo is one item in the array, bar is another. So you don't have to do quotes, comma, quotes, comma. Quote.
Oh,
If you have 500 things, you can just copy and paste the list of words or data and just put percentage W. So I think I understand that one. Percent W. Just so that the list more close to an array. What is a little form of? Okay. But use double percent W.
avoid. He says avoid.
Avoid percentage.
Here we are learning it and he tells you to avoid it.
Most code I see uses parentheses. Sorry. Let's see. This is %W. Okay, use %W freely with parenthesis delimiters. Avoid. Okay, but can you tell us what percentage Q is, please? That's what
Tell us why to avoid it, you know? Maybe
don't
we'll understand.
seek understanding. We want compliance.
Yeah, pretty
Do
much.
not use percentage Q no matter what. Just, you know, just for that, I want to use it. Okay, let's see. Okay, single quotes. Okay, at least we know the difference between lowercase and uppercase Q. Double quotes is the uppercase Q. Single quotes is the lowercase Q.
Right.
So here, percentage Q ABC is the same as single quote ABC. Percentage capital Q ABC is the same as double quote AB. Okay, I think we got it now, yes? Let's go back to what we were looking at and see if we can understand it then. So this is putting double quotes around this whole thing.
Right, yeah, that's simple, right?
So my question to you, Bhavya, so that we're putting a double quote right in front of the S of select then. And at the end of this closing bracket would be here. So for some,
it would be at the end, right? Descending order there after the semicolon. Descending that order by at the end, it would be semicolon.
yes, you're right. You're right. It'll be before it. So it'll be right here. So let me just highlight what would be in quotes when we do this.
Okay.
So it'll be, so can you explain it now?
Yes, I think if sorry. If see, I was always used the I always used to write this queries within the quotes. So that's percentage Q is doing that one, right? Here.
So you normally would just put the quotation marks.
Yes.
Yeah, why
So-
not?
Yeah, I don't understand. How does this save us? This doesn't seem to save us lots of,
Right.
oh, you know where I think where it could come in handy?
Uh-huh.
Let's say throughout this whole thing, we have lots of single quotes, lots of double quotes, and we don't want to do the math of figuring out which
Okay.
one do I surround it with, single or double, or, and this
Mhm.
is saying it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
We'll just, it'll be the equivalent of quotes, but maybe it won't impact whatever's in the middle,
Mhm.
possibly. But let me ask you this, Bobby, why do we need the quotes around that anyway?
That is
Is
the
that-
like format. We write that SQL statement within the quotes that are that when using that method, active record based connection that
So
execute.
then, but then why don't you need quotes around dot field values? Because that's becoming, that's Ruby again?
That's a Ruby, yeah. That is not part of the SQL
I
statement.
see.
That's
So,
again,
okay.
yeah.
So in summary, we have to type active record : base dot connection dot execute open parentheses quotation marks,
Yes.
then close quotation marks and close the parentheses.
Yes.
That is the SQL statement
Mhm.
in Rails
Yeah.
using SQL. And then you can, then that basically turns it into Ruby code that can be manipulated.
Mhm.
Was that,
No,
yes?
that's no. That is uh, executing the SQL statement on Rails platform.
But once it returns it, it's returning it, like you said, usually as a hash,
Yes,
perhaps, or an
yes.
array. Then we
Mhm.
can manipulate it as if it's a regular Ruby object.
Yes.
I understand this, I think. Susan, Selena, how are you feeling?
I get it.
I think so.
Neither of them seem very excited. I get it. I think so. Okay, at least Selena and Susan are smiling. I
At least
think
we're
that-
honest.
I mean, it's not the most magical thing, but it's important, and I think it's helpful for us because moving forward, we're going to have to work with SQL in and know how to do this. Bobby has already been a pretty good expert at doing this. I'm finally grateful that we're gaining some of her secret knowledge and sharing it with the world here on YouTube as well. So this is good. I think then, oh, and then before we can go into continue, Bobby, what did you learn today?
I learned about that I like where it's in case sensitive pattern matching.
Mhm.
And I never knew like we can pass the parents parameter to the VAC condition as a condition. That's a new thing I learned. Mhm.
Yeah, I'm wondering where is the param coming from? From the browser, the URL?
So I think from the URL, right? Yeah,
Usually.
Okay.
yeah. Usually it's from params. Yeah.
Awesome. So in summary, I think what we learned is what active record is for Selena's case in general and how that relates to SQL. We learned how the basics of how we can construct a SQL statement within Rails. We learned that what percentage W does, which is the
Mhm.
one that puts a list of things into creates an array. And we're going to verify that. I just want to make sure. Don't want to give any bad info and have us going off.
Yeah, I want to try that one, especially when you're downloading user data and formatting it for our requirement. It's like, I think that would be very useful there.
Yeah, percentage W foo bar is a shortcut for open brackets foo comma bar.
Hmm.
It's a notation to write an array of strings by spaces instead of commas and without quotes. You can find a list of ways of writing literals in ZenSpider's QuickRef. Let's check out ZenSpider. Strings. Oh, this is very interesting.
Look at all the examples. Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that's nice.
Let's, what is this? Are those regular expressions or what? I think so.
They look like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what regular expressions are, Selena?
Is it the stuff you put in strings?
It's a way to search through strings to find particular matches. So we could create a regular expression to look through this to find any word that starts with A and ends with a vowel. And it would come up with alpha, ASCII, and whatever other ones. Maybe those are the only two in this. Does that make sense? So
Kind of.
sometimes that's very helpful, and we can use the basically any search thing on a website in some way, shape, or form. It's probably using regular expressions in the back. So when you go on a Google and we're searching for something, it's using a regular expression to parse what we're typing and saying, oh, let's give back results that match those search terms. So awesome. So yeah, I think we can, I thought it was just, I didn't think we were going to end up talking about that for the whole hour, but it led us on a lot of different adventures. And I feel more confident about Sql and Active Record. And we know that we're not ever supposed to use %q, ever. But I might anyway, just to upset them. But I do agree, it does seem like, I think in most cases you don't need it, because I don't think we're going to have, unless maybe you have a query that's 20 pages long and you just don't want to figure out which quotations to use. You know where it comes in handy, I think, too?
Okay, yeah, Richard.
I'm sorry? Oh, that was her sister. Selena talked without moving her mouth.
She did, yeah.
It was amazing. Maybe if someone, like, let's say Bhavya writes the SQL query and it's really long, let's just say it is long and it has lots of quotations in it, rather than the next person trying to figure out which quotation marks do I use, maybe you can just put the percentage. But here's actually, but maybe it's, why is there lowercase and uppercase? The lowercase %q was for single quotes. The uppercase %q was for double quotes. So therefore, you do still need to look at the internal code to see which is the outer level of quotation marks. And then you need to use % lowercase or uppercase crew, maybe, depending. So I don't think we've mastered it at all, but at least we know if we see the %q, oh, it's basically just a way of putting quotation marks in there. And do you guys have any questions?
I'm good.
Awesome. I'm gonna stop the recording shortly. Let's just do actually we can do this, we can do the group photo after I stop the recording. So anyway, you guys on YouTube watching, thank you. If you're a member, please log in today so we can keep our active members high. We miss you. If you haven't joined us and you thought this was fascinating and thought, wow, I'd like to be a part of that, anybody can join these meetings. We just right now, we all 4 of us work on the staff of Break Diving, but we welcome anyone to join our YouTube events, and we hope you will too. So remember the Break Divers Creed: no rules, no excuses, no regrets. Life is going to get you down. Everyone in the community know that life has gotten me down this last week, and I have a big smile on my face, but I feel like crap. But I'm smiling, baby. I'm smiling. And it's what we have to try to do. And this new girl just joined us from Germany, and she's just wrote a message in there saying how wonderfully surprised she was with how friendly everybody is and how supportive we all are. And she said, it's my favorite small community ever. And I wrote to her and I said, I hope in time that you can continue to be a part of this so you can help this grow into your favorite global worldwide community with millions of people. But we want you to be there too, and we think you'll love it just as much as we do. And especially if you're a Ruby on Rails coder, like all of us, don't you think it'd be a lot more fun to meet us and have some friends rather than doing it by yourself in the dark and cold with a scarf around your neck? So, all right, everyone wave. Bye.
Well,